Importing data. Now, you can use the features of CREST whether your data are pulling in automatically via a data logger or whether you import manually sets of data. And CREST can handle large imports of data at a time and include both 5-minute data if you're gathering 5-minute or even 1-minute data, as well as hourly values. So the first thing I want to do though is I want to make sure that if I'm importing months and months of data at a time, I have the level 0 validation checks established. And those are the range, so the acceptable range for the parameter so that the data will be flagged if it's outside a certain range, if the values from one record to the next jump by more than a set amount, and if you've got stuck values. So if you've got values that stay the exact same from record to record to record, and if I'm importing, say, a lot of data at a time, I want the system to scan the data as I import it and to do those checks. That will save me a lot of time and I won't have to do that in Excel. So the first thing I want to do is establish those level 0 data validation checks. So from the dashboard, I go to Agency, Sites, and then I find my site. In your case, you probably would only have few sites. And our organization is the ITEP-2 AQS Site ID 9001 for training. I click Edit. And this takes me back to this super important panel where a lot of things start from. And I'm going to just be importing PM10. I don't have my system set up to pull PM10, but I'm going to use the features of CREST to review my data and to get it ultimately into AQS directly from CREST. I want to set up the level 0 validation criteria for PM10. So I find my PM10 monitor here under the Site Monitors panel. I click Edit, and that takes me to this panel where I can do some really important things. For example, changing the units. That happens sometimes if you're gathering data for a while and then things get reset and you may be gathering data in different units. You could change the unit code here. But what I'm looking at specifically here are these alerts. And these are the level 0 validation checks that CREST will perform automatically. Now, if you're gathering n-minute data, and that means minute data or 5-minute data, you can ask CREST to perform these. You can set up CREST so that these level 0 validation alerts are set up for, say, your 5-minute data. And you do that by clicking these drop-down boxes for N meaning n-minute data, whether it's 1 minute or 5-minute, or H meaning hourly data. Now for my TOM and the particular set of data that I'm going to be importing, it's just hourly. I want my data to be flagged if it is lower than negative 50 micrograms per cubic meter at 25 degrees Celsius. And the reason that is because AQS is not going to accept my TOM data if it's less than negative 50 micrograms per cubic meter. And that is based upon the method detection limit in those AQS codes. We won't go into a lot of detail about that. I will tell you that if you want to make things simple, you can click here Options and reapply CREST default limits. And what these default limits are based upon those AQS codes. So for a TOM, AQS is not going to accept the data if it's less than 50 micrograms per cubic meter. Okay, that's fine. Now what about the maximum? Well, I don't think my TOM even goes this high. I want to be alerted. I'm in a fairly low wind, low dust area. I'm in the mountains, so I want to be alerted if my hourly PM10 concentrations go greater than 65 micrograms per cubic meter. Now for the amount change, I'm going to set this for every hour to the next hour, and the default is 150. I think that's pretty excessive. I think if my PM10 concentrations change by more than, I'm going to say 30 micrograms per cubic meter in an hour, I want to be notified. You can come back and change these. If you're getting text messages every hour saying that your PM10 concentrations go up, 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 and then down, 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 you may want to change this. But I'm just going to say for now 30 micrograms per cubic meter. So I'll get an email or a text, depending upon what I've set up in my user profile, if from one hourly period to the next, my PM10 data that I'm just importing in this case changes by more than 30 micrograms per cubic meter. Now the stuck values, that's for the case when from 1 hour to the next hour to the next hour, for however many you put in here. I've got 3, so for 3 hours in a row, if my PM10 concentration is the exact same thing for 3 hours in a row, I think there's something wrong. So I do want to get a notification, and I want that data to be flagged. So since I changed some of these, you could see this save button down here is in dark green. If I went to this page and didn't change anything, this save button would be grayed out, and I would just be able to go back to the site. But since I changed something, I'm going to say save. If you say go back to this site, Crest will say, wait, you changed something. Do you really want to leave this page? And in case I was just in the wrong page and asleep, I can say leave this page, or I'm going to say stay here and I'm going to save. So now I've set these level 0 validation checks for automatically pulled in PM10 data if I ever get that set up, but for now I'm importing hour to hour PM10 concentrations manually. These alerts are going to flag my data, as I'll show you in the next video.